Welcome to the App Advisory Show, your fortnightly dose of all things cloud accounting, apps, and app advisory.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the App Advisory Show. I've got a couple of English Northerners here to have a chat with, Sam Squared as they're now known. But I've got Sam Horner and Sam Tasker-Grindley. Afternoon, gents.
Afternoon.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Looking very polished in, we wouldn't even know who you're representing with your newly acquired Swoop gear that you've got on in readiness for today. But yeah, we're going to chat a bit about, you guys have got a bit of a background in this world, not just with Swoop, with other products as well. And we're going to have a good old chat around Swoop as well and learn a bit more about that today. But are you guys both well?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. And just to want to point out, Sam's not a Northerner. He might live in the north, but he's not a Northerner. He's never going to be accepted.
He's only been north for 5 years plus. That's it now. He's never going back.
Still not accepting me, Matt.
No.
Oh dear. Oh, well, just go live in the Midlands. We'll take anyone down here. So yeah, you're okay. Right. Okay. So if you both want to just introduce yourself and what you do for Swoop.
Ladies first.
Thank you. My work wife, thank you. Sam Horner, I'm the head of advisor channel for Swoop. I've worked in professional services for about 20 years, banking for 10, legal for 2, and then just under 8 years working in the accounting software space. Receipt bank, as it will always be in my mind. I'm orange till I die, and worked there from when the early stages saw it grow to Series D. Great trajectory, and then worked for Futurely for a couple of years in the forecasting world, building partnerships, which is where I built the partnership with Swoop and joined Swoop September last year, I think it was.
Cool. And Mr. TG?
Sam number 2. So I'm a chartered accountant by background, so I was in practice for about eight years. I started off in a private client firm, so I've worked in small firms and big firms, most recently at RSM. And then I moved to Clarity about 18 months, 2 years ago, which was my first step into the fintech world, working with accountants rather than being one. And then Sam and Mr. Sam here always said that we'd work together at some point, and he stole me over to Swoop. So at Swoop, I'm head of advisor success. So any of the accountants that join us in our new SaaS product will be looked after by me as their dedicated account manager. To help them to use the platform and to get good value out of it.
You guys working pretty closely together then on that, in that world? Yeah.
I mean, it's Sam and I against the world. So it's ours to build. So we succeed and we fail, or we fail together, basically.
Literally. And is recruitment policy, you've just got to be called Sam?
Exactly.
Just anyone
Sam and a beard. Yeah, Sam
and a beard. Right.
You can work part-time for us, Matt.
Thank you.
But I'd also like to say thank you to you as well publicly for actually introducing Sam and I. Originally when Sam was at GBAC, wasn't it, and just moved to Leeds, looking to build relationships. And I guess for me, that's true testament of the partnerships and the relationships you can build in this space. That was probably 7-8 years ago or something. And the love has just blossomed from there. And we've got a beautiful marriage now, a great relationship. I love him, he hates me, but it works.
You can at least let him out with the broom cupboard then, if that's what you're going to do, right?
Yeah, every time. I'll see.
Right, anyway, enough of this joyfulness. It's far too, we're here to educate, right, and make people aware. But tell us a bit about Swoop, because I mean, there's a lot of new apps, new tech, new solutions really started to come out of this whole pandemic period. I know Swoop was there beforehand, but I think a lot of these come to the fore. So, give us an overview of what Swoop is doing and who it's helping and how it's helping them.
Yeah, sure. So Swoop has been built, it's built for SMEs and advisors. We've Andrea, our CEO and founder, she's a KPMG accountant by trade, and just recognized trying to build out funding solutions for her clients or SMEs was so difficult to go out and build the relationships whether it be with equity investors, building relationships, finding the right grants for your clients. And then, the bank manager, we know, doesn't exist really so much anymore, but also brokers may have a small network of funders they work with, but actually, how do you truly find the right solutions? As we know now, funding has changed dramatically. It's not about debt because it's a distressed business. It's about a growth of a business. How do we support them through e-commerce loans and so on? So Swoop has been built essentially to find the right answer for a client, whether it be not debt every time, but actually might be that it's investment that's right for them. It might be that there's grants available, but also savings within that business as well. So it might be that we can rebroker the foreign exchange, bank account switches, really just truly putting this small business in the middle and going, okay, how can we work with them and how can we give them the best possible service? It's really built with the SME at heart, but also working alongside the advisors, or as we would call, but essentially accountants and bookkeepers as well.
Yeah, and I think Swoop, just to add to that, I think Swoop itself is one of the best case studies for what it is we're trying to achieve in terms of that whole business growth, right from startup loans, which Andrea and Kieran took out when they first got started, to growth funding and grant funding from various different enterprises, then into equity investment, etc., and further on. So that's what we're ultimately trying to do with businesses that come on through the platform. Is we're not just looking at debt funding. We're not just looking at chucking out as many RLSs as we possibly can at the moment. We want to support them in multiple different ways, and giving those tools over to accountants to be able to pass on to their clients is so valuable. And we'll probably touch on this a little bit later, but a couple of things that accountants get quite excited about are the grants and the equity side, because that's something that the grant world is so confusing. If you're just trying to Google what grants you might be eligible for, it's absolutely baffling. You need a full-time resource to be able to keep an eye on that ever-changing landscape. So just to be able to, and Swoop's grant funding service literally just works as in you just put in your postcode or your industry, and it will spit out exactly what you might be eligible for. For an accountant to go into any year-end meeting or month-end meeting and saying, actually, there's some grant funding available for you here, it's just a no-brainer almost to go through that.
And I know you've touched on your roles within that, and it's very much a link to the advisor world. I know that's encompassing a few different roles in there, but give us a little bit more of an idea of what that's doing, sort of month to month rather than day to day or week to week. Like, how are you really living that role, if you like?
Should I go? Well,
you were about to go, so go on.
Sam and I have we've basically split up responsibilities within the channel. So Sam will very much be looking after sales and partnerships as a focus, and then I'll be looking after marketing and success as my focus. And then we have a team below that will help us to execute that and do that throughout. So when Swoop was born, it was a direct to business offering, and obviously now the advisor channel has been launched literally the 1st of February. It's been officially launched. So yeah, we're out there basically trying to tell everyone about what we're doing, why we're different, and how we can help. So yeah, there's a lot to do, as you can imagine, with starting up any new offering, and it's like you said, there's a lot of noise out there to compete with and trying to get the attention of those accountants, and that's what Sam and I are trying to do on a daily basis.
H, what about you? Is it more of a split of introducing, educating, and then actually executing? So it starts with Sam on the education awareness, and then Sam TG, as we'll say, it goes into more of the actual executing on the solution and what it can do and how best to utilize it. Is that a fair assumption on that?
I sell the dream, Sam delivers the dream.
Right, okay.
And hopefully that aligns in what we do. But no, it's for us, it's really about understanding why an accountant is engaged with us and what their true pain is, because it might not be, no one's going to say to us, I don't speak to my clients enough about funding. It's never, they're never going to come up with that answer. So for us, it's just understanding and not working with every accounting firm in the land, because it doesn't really achieve anything, because you can never truly give them that one-to-one support that they need to I guess engage, move from, I suppose, a compliance world in most cases to then start spotting opportunities to support their clients and help them grow and have those more exciting conversations. So it's really about understanding and working out who those accountants are, and that's only through me having conversations, myself and a couple of the team having those conversations with the accounting firms and going, okay, is this right for you or not? And it's okay if it's not right for you, because we're not going to bring you on a journey that isn't going to benefit everybody along the way. And actually, do you know what, I've been in this long enough that I just want to work with people who want to work with us, and enjoy doing, making a difference and a change. And I know that sounds cheesy, but genuinely. And you know what, so far we launched it last week, and the numbers are still way above where we anticipated of people who are already on board. Sam's sending me lovely messages saying, just had a great intro meeting, kick-off meeting with so-and-so, such lovely people, really, really willing to work with us. And that's exactly what we want. That's what we're looking for.
I think just touch on a bit more detail. I think that compatibility with a solution, a partner, is something that has to be considered by every single advisor, whether you're a bookkeeper or an accountant. It's highly unlikely that you're going to be compatible with every single opportunity or solution that's out there. And I think lots of people do need to take that into consideration when they're looking at this. You might want the swag and all that, but that's a different conversation. But I think you have got to, if you listen to this, you've got to work out who you're compatible with. And I think the people who've been in this world from a solutions perspective for a period of time realize that it's not a catch-all. It's like work out who's best and who's going to, as you say, win on all fronts. The other bit I just want to talk about is obviously, like, you guys have been in a world where we've been able to educate and make people aware pre-pandemic. And then now we've got this pandemic and hopefully post-pandemic endemic world that we're about to go into. Like, how have you thought about like the educational part of that? I know there's social media and knows that. Have you got any ideas, or is it more you're looking forward to getting back out there when we can, go to these exhibitions and meet people again? We had a couple of little forays last year into that, which was good to see people. But like, what are you guys thinking about on education? And has there been anything enlightening in that part for you, or is it we're going to get back on track with the face-to-face stuff when we can?
I actually think it's easier than ever to educate, because I think accountants and businesses are used to now being educated digitally and virtually, as well as face-to-face, whereas previously it was probably relied too much on the face-to-face. But accelerated technology and digital transformation has accelerated so much across the board that it's now much easier to do that. We've built an education platform. That's what I've been busy with over the last the first few weeks of my time here, and obviously CPD accredited. So we will be, for those advisors that do sign up to the platform, they'll be able to put their team through our education, and we've really focused that on outcomes. So we know that not every accountant needs to be an expert in funding. They probably don't have time to be an expert in funding, but that's where our service is so much more important, because they can have the surface knowledge, so they can start the conversation with their clients, but then we can go and do the hard work and be that resource and that team behind the scenes. But I mean, from the educational point of view, obviously marketing is really important, getting out on social media and talking. You might find Sam and I doing some TikTok videos at some point, but it does lend itself really well to video, and it does lend itself really well to those short, catchy, educational type things. So there's obviously not every accountant's on at TikTok, so they're not necessarily, but a lot of businesses and etc. are, especially young businesses, fast growth tech businesses. They will be on those sorts of platforms. So I think at some point I will get Sam on there.
You are, but anyway, on that, the face-to-face meetings, there's quite a lot of accountants that I've spoken to and I've known for some time and said, look, do you want me to come out and see you? And it's the first thing that I've offered before a video meeting. And actually the majority said, can we just do this first? Because I can get more of my team in and I know I can nail them down to 30 minutes. But if we're doing it and it's a specific location, then it's more difficult to do. So yeah, I'm, have car, will travel. But at the same time, I think I've had one face-to-face meeting and I've got 2 in the diary. To be fair, the ones that are coming through are the usuals who are going, meet up for a beer, which is still really important. You know, that's the social aspect of it as well, because people buy people, as we know. But yeah, the majority of people would rather do it this way, but we'll always offer the option of face-to-face as well.
Yeah.
Just to add to that, I mean, there's levels as well. So, you know, funding, we can help people with funding for like a 10 grand loan, or we can help people with funding for like a £2 million loan. For that £2 million and the more complex stuff, you don't just rely on a piece of technology to get you through that, and nor would we want a client to trust necessarily just a piece of technology. So we and our funding managers will absolutely get in front of the client so they can see the whites of our eyes and know that we are trying to get the best option for them. So, you know, when it comes to actually delivering our service, we're not hiding behind a piece of technology. We're definitely out there in the forefront, want to be challenged and want to talk through what's the best option for your client and for the accountant.
Okay, so the other thing I always like to ask this question is like what's the history? Where like normally a solution comes up because people are trying to solve a personal solution, and I don't even know if that's the answer to this, by the way. But I'm always intrigued just to know, like, where did this come from? You know, I think you mentioned the lady at the very start who kicked this off, but yeah, I'd just love to hear a little bit more about where this evolved from.
Yeah, well, so yeah, and Sam touched on it briefly, but yeah, Andrea, who's one of the founders, was finding it difficult herself to find grant funding for people or to get equity together. And whenever they needed any sort of debt funding where she was before, was finding it absolutely hopeless and difficult to try and get all of the best options. What typically happens when someone's looking for funding is that they'll spend a bit of time on Google, and then they're open to whoever's just spent the most money on a Google ad, and that's probably normally the option they go with. So why not go to a broker like Swoop, or there's obviously others out there where you can get the best of the market and the best option for you. So like you said, most of these things are born out of a need from the founder, where they found a frustration and gone to find a solution for it. And yeah, there's absolutely no difference from how Swoop's been founded.
I think it's also nice that, yeah, Andrea's a chartered accountant by trade as well, KPMG trained. She's got the bruises and the scars. She knows exactly what it's like. And her view is, yeah, if I'm going through this, why should anyone else go through this? Surely there must be a better way. And, you know, it's the same as, like I say, the majority of softwares. It's always great to hear that actually it's come from a personal pain rather than just, oh, I can make some money here. It's more about actually it's a personal quest.
Yeah, I think as well, like this conversation around brokering in general, whether it's personal, whether it's commercial, is quite interesting, because I use broker for my financial affairs, mortgages, and all that type of stuff, and I didn't always use them. But some of the information that was given is not always about, oh, it's the best rate, or it's actually down to you personally, right? So I remember one point in time where we needed something pretty quick. We had to speak to the broker. It won't, if you want it through quick and you want the least questions, it's this lender. If you want the cheapest rate, it's this lender, but expect a multitude of questions and quite a long time frame. So some of it is just being in the informed state of what do you need, what's your personal scenario. It's not always a rate conversation, right? It's about solution, time frames, what's your personal circumstances, whether it's business or personal. How does that fit in? So I think when we talk about brokers, I think people tend to think, oh, you know, it's just about a percentage on a rate and what can be done. It's not always the case, is it?
No.
It's that educational point. You know, the brokers have been there for however many years. They've seen it all, so they know how to negotiate and deliver the best deal for you. So yeah, you know, you're absolutely right there. It's not just about the rate. Sometimes the cheapest isn't the best option, and that's quite often true, particularly with commercial mortgages and the property side. You don't just want to get the cheapest rate.
Right. So this is this part is really for you to just talk a little bit about some of the key features or what's recently happened in terms of solution or what's going to come up in solution. So it's a bit of a pitch point for you guys just to give us a bit more of some of the detail that relates to the audience, bookkeepers, accountants, advisors that are probably listening to this. So I'll hand over to you. Like, give us a bit of an accelerated pitch on what you guys are doing or what's of interest in the solution.
Yeah, I guess, well, you know, as Sam alluded to, we relaunched the advisor channel, or our SaaS model. You know, we've been in the space, you know, Swoop's pretty much 3 years old, had a partnership with the ICAW for the last 12 months. So got a bit of exposure to the accounting world, but actually very limited exposure, which is why Sam and I have come on board to build this out and start working, you know, closer with accountants and bookkeepers. So yeah, we relaunched back 1st of February, and the relaunch means that now we have a free version of Swoop, which we've always had a free version. So you can sign up to the platform and, you know, use our matching services and work with our fund managers. That's always something that we're going to offer, and we're committed that will be something we will still have. However, we built a subscription model, which again, yeah, we launched. For the purpose that to give the further support, because we've realised, you know, there's a number of accountants that work with us at the minute. Plug and play doesn't work. You know, it will for some who are extremely knowledgeable around that area, but actually, it's the support that they need, it's the education they need, it's the proactiveness they need, but also sometimes, yeah, when I say proactiveness, probably the little kick up the bum and just a reminder that actually you've agreed. Yeah, it is, and just saying, okay. We've committed to do this together. So actually, let's set some goals that we want to achieve, and we'll achieve them together. Because if you build it out, we all know if you create a plan but you don't write it down, then the chances of you delivering it, as Sam knows with my organisation, if I don't write it down, it won't get done. But it's true. So we've built some services around that now, which, you know, Sam is a big part of that in terms of the education side and the support that he delivers. But actually, the proactive nature of being able to run reports on clients, to understand just from their company name, we can pull a whole host of information in terms of credit scores, what their default rating would be from a funding perspective. If there's any current charges, we can understand who they're with. Any areas that we think we can support them, you know, local grants are available and things. So we can present that back to the accountant and say, look, it might be a prospect that they're going to meet. You know, how amazing it is to have this report that you can co-brand and say, look, this is what we found out about you. If you're looking for funding or we're going for growth, as you just mentioned, we probably need to tighten up from a credit score perspective. It's going to affect the rates that you get, or these areas that we've identified, we can support you straight away, or we can work on in the future. So it's really about, let's say, having those tools and putting those tools in place to be able to support the accountants and bookkeepers in more detail. And the one thing I will add before Sam jumps on is, as I mentioned earlier, we're truly working with accountants and bookkeepers around what their actual needs are at that moment in time. Sam had a great chat with one that's just recently come on board, who's moving into advisory services. And one of the questions he asked was, do you have a pricing structure in place? No. So Sam's got a call with him next week, building a pricing structure, because actually that's the thing that's important to that advisor right now. And unless we help with that, then it's going to fall apart in the long run. So again, it's just understanding, you know, and genuinely that is the bit that is really, really important, is being able to help deliver on, you know, on what we said or what we've agreed. Sam, is there anything you want to add?
Definitely helps being an accountant myself, because I do understand a lot of the challenges. And it's one of the things that I learned when I was at Clarity, quite a lot really, was in order to get the best potential out of an accounting firm for them to be able to deliver advisory services, they've got a whole host of challenges they've got to try and overcome, you know, time, confidence, education, resources, whatever it might be. So there's lots of different things they've got to overcome before they can actually deliver the service to its full potential. So it's the same with Clarity, and it'll be the same with Swoop. If I insist on just talking about Clarity and Swoop, we're not going to get very far, because other things come up in their day-to-day. Accountants always get dragged back into, you know, they're slightly potentially over-engineered compliance process, which can be quite complicated. So yeah, it's important that and everyone coming through Swoop, whoever Sam and I bring on, whichever other future Sams there are in Swoop, do have that understanding of the challenges that accountants have to go through.
Yeah, I think one of the things I've spoken about this a lot with the solutions and some of the apps is, I think it's not just having the app, it's having the service. But then every service needs a process, every service needs a resource, every service needs a commerciality to it, and every service needs a education path to it. Yeah. So without those, so it doesn't matter what solution you pick up, that's what you've got to be thinking about. It's not like, oh, I've just signed up with app X and all of a sudden I put app X on my website and we are flying, you know, this thing's chucking out the door. And actually the client doesn't really care what even the app is called or what the solution is. It's like, right now there's a problem. These guys know a solution that can help me, and this is the service they offer to deliver that. And I think that's the key thing, is that it's just a start getting involved with a solution. The next part is thinking about what the service and all those underlying factors are when you're doing it. So I think that's good.
You can't underestimate how important a process is. And people find processes really boring, but they are the key to sustainable success. You might have the odd bit of success, you know, 1 or 2 bits without it, but unless you properly embed it into your processes, you're just never going to do it. And one of the first things that you taught me, Matt, when I met you was, and this is not me brown nosing you, but it comes up time is the importance of doing a client segmentation exercise. And the number of people or the number of accounting firms that I speak to, and they're always like, oh yeah, I've been meaning to do that. Or, you know, I did it and it's sat in the cupboard somewhere and I've not looked at it since we did it. But not just for funding, it's the key to knowing your clients. It's the key to providing them with the right service across the board, whether that be whatever that might be. It's just so key. It baffles me how few do it, because actually it's just a really nice exercise to do with all of your team. It shouldn't just be done with one person either. It's just a great thing to go through.
Brilliantly enlightening if you can get to that point of understanding it. And I think lots of people have done client segmentation. Actually, I think the problem is they haven't updated their data capture or management processes to keep that a consistent view. So they do it for MTD or whatever comes along once. Yeah. The world moves on, especially over the last 2 years. It seems to have moved on pretty quickly, and we're back at still that segmentation view that we had like in 2019. And there's so much gold in there in terms of whether it's cross-pollination services, whether it's introductions to new services, or you're thinking about new services. But without that, you are a little bit blind and you're sort of going on gut feel. So yeah, I mean, it is one of the, when we did the MTD first bunch, I did a lot of segmentation work with firms. It was enlightening for me. I was like, you know, this is one of the worst parts, but you know, lots of these firms have either got a few hundred clients or a few thousand clients. It's like, God, that's your gold. That's your opportunity to do more. And, you know, not always new business. What more can we do for these clients? So yeah, if you're listening, you can do it, or there's one project you can actually undertake, that would help you so much with working with these solutions like you guys and others that are out there.
Yeah, it's to your point earlier as well, though, Matt. It's great doing the exercise, but it's what you do after it. You know, same if you can buy the app and you can pay X amount of months for it, but that still doesn't solve the problem. It's what you do with that. And I think maybe the client segmentation is sometimes because there's painful conversations that have to be had. You know, it's like, we need to exit that client because they're draining, you know, it's not profitable. We can have the conversation about increasing the fees, but actually we still don't want to be working with that client. And I think that's a bit that people are afraid of. And I understand it is hard, but it's the right thing for your business.
That compatibility, you know, we talk about the compatibility between a software vendor, a solution, and an accounting firm and a bookkeeper. It's the same with your clients, right? You are definitely compatible with certain clients at one point in time and one point in time only, and now you're probably not. But then there's got to be a process in order to remove them or take them out or work out how they won't be part of your portfolio in 2 years' time. And I think that's the difficulty. Like I say, that's a hard conversation. That's probably something a little bit alien to losing revenue. Whether it's profitable or not is irrelevant. Sometimes you just don't lose the revenue. So I agree. I think that's it does bring up some difficult scenarios to consider.
I mean, for Sam and I, we're in a very nice place where we are not cherry picking as such, but we're working with the ones who want to work with us. And that's the bit that almost like, you know, when people say, I remember the back in the day, oh, well, it's easy for these small cloud firms that, you know, have come on board because they don't have the legacy. And it's like, I kind of get that in a way, because we've got the same space now where it's like, we're great. You know, it's kind of green fields, as it were, for us. And it's all about understanding who wants to work with us and we, you know, whether it's right for us to work with them as well.
Okay, is there anything more on the solution or roadmap that you want to touch on, or have you covered the main pieces? Anything else?
Yeah, I'll just cover a few things which might just be helpful from the account. I'm not even really selling. I'm just selling funding advisory. But
yeah,
the number of as part of our discovery, we always ask the accountant whether they talk to their clients much about funding, or if they get to help them that often. And the number of times that I hear the answer is no, and this will be from accounting firms that turn over $1 million plus, and they'll tell me that none of their clients need funding, and maybe they're just lucky, and I find that a really odd, slightly odd mindset, really, because actually that tells me that those business owners potentially aren't that ambitious and they're not looking for business growth. But it also tells me that they're going elsewhere for funding and they're not speaking to their accountant about it, who's should ultimately be their trusted advisor. So what we're trying to do, and part of where we're trying to make up for any lack of resource or and trying to overcome any excuses, is to try and get the accountant to go from reactive to proactive with funding. So when you're being reactive, you're literally waiting for an opportunity to hit you in the face, someone come to you and say, I need some funding, I'm running out of cash, or whatever it might be, and actually turn into being proactive. And a huge part of that is how they communicate with clients and build their marketing around funding. So I'm a big believer that you get what you pitch for. And if you're always talking to your clients about chasing tax returns or chasing accounts information or bribery act or whatever it might be, that's all they're ever going to come to you for, and that's all they're ever going to know that you do. So until you start talking to your clients about business growth, about the importance of working capital management, invoice finance is not doom and gloom, it's actually something that's sensible working capital, those types of things, unless you're talking about those sorts of things, your clients are never going to come to you with those. So what we want is for accountants to be getting inbound leads from their own existing clients asking about funding, not just accountants spotting opportunities within their client base. So there will be both, but at the moment, unfortunately, there's neither for a lot of them. So the opportunity here is actually huge for accounting firms in the with funding. It's just how they go about it.
Yeah, I think there's two things for me. It's how you frame the question, and it's when you ask the question, right? And the point is, there's no bad time to ask that question. It's just whether it's the right time for the client. I know from my own SME world, we went for funding for growth for Blue Orb a couple of years ago. If you'd have asked me 2 years, every year for the last 5 years before that, if I wanted any money for funding for growth, it would have been no. But you've asked me in the 6th year, and it's yes. Yeah. And I think it was also the question can be is, are you looking to grow? Yes. Okay. How are you funding that? Like, what's the plan? Are you self-funding that? Do you want to bring that forward? Do you want to scale that quicker? Those are the questions. So I think we're always linking funding to, I'm out of cash. I've got POE, VAT, payroll in 6 months, and I can see I can't afford it. It's not always that conversation, but I do think I've heard this from accountants before. Yeah, I spoke to that client like whenever, and you go recently, and they told me they didn't want funding, and you look and say, well, check when that conversation was, and it's like 2.5 years ago, because we just lost when we asked that question. So what you're doing by consistently just asking, even if it's twice a year, is they know that you can offer something. So whenever that, you want to acquire a business that was never on the radar, but a business comes up for sale, but you need some funding, they're like, oh, you know what, Matt kept asking me about that, so I'm just going to go back and ask them. So I think you've got to set the education awareness from the off and expect that, 9 times out of 10, they're going to say not right now, but I know it's there. So
every accountant's got a year-end process or accounts prep process. Just
absolutely.
Just 1 or 2 questions. It doesn't take up any time at all. Just add it in as part of your process you've got already, and you'll start to uncover those opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. It's the right question. It'll just be whether it's the right time for the client. There's nothing wrong with asking it, in my opinion. You're going to say yes or no. And if it's yes, right, we need to take that separate conversation and understand that in a little bit more detail, et cetera, et cetera. So, okay. So we're going to have a lot of people who are working with accounting software, who are listening to this in all sorts. So how does your solution interact with the accounting software? Like, how does that all work?
Yeah.
Sam or Sam. I can say Sam, and then just you can look at each other blankly. Which one?
Exactly. Yeah. So we work with accounting software, so you can pull the data through. We work from open banking as well, so you can pull the data through from your bank account as well. So you can pull all the information through, which gives us rich data, again, which helps us with the savings side as well to understand, what utilities are in play, what foreign exchange charges are in there, bank charges and stuff, so we can help to help on the savings side as well. So not just looking at the funding side of things. But yeah, quite simply, let's say we connect up the accounting data, or if it's a desktop solution, you just upload into our system. So we have a document library for each of the clients where you can store all the information that's required.
Is that just on a desktop? I know we're talking a lot about cloud, but I mean, there's still a lot of people on desktop. I sort of get how the cloud world would work. But is that a case of you will happily work with all the different formats from like Sage 50, Sage 200, Opera, whatever else is out there, TAS, all those great systems. You'll just take the export and try and work with that with them. So try and make it as easy as possible for the.
You just export a PDF, we upload it into our software, and it's ultimately what the banks will take. And we talked about open banking a little bit there and direct bank fees, but actually the large majority of the banks still don't accept bank statements from open banking. They still want real copies of them, or ones that have come straight from. So yeah, the technology part of that isn't all that important really. As long as you can get us a set of annual accounts, a set of management accounts, etc., then they can just be uploaded and that's it.
Yeah, it's amazing how many calls I've been on where they've gone, oh yeah, I'll just get it for you now. Click through, click. Yeah, okay, there you go. It's in the document library, done. Because most of that information is readily available to an accountant anyway. So. And
to be honest, without, even if you were going through funding without using a technology solution, you've got to produce that type of output anyway, right? So we're just making it easier to present that and make it available to the relevant people.
Well, this is the thing as well. I mean, this is why funding is so important in an accounting firm, because not only can you earn commission or do the right thing for your clients by helping them to grow, you can sell more of your services by doing management accounts for more of your clients. And when I was at RSM, I think it was something like 1%, maybe even less, of RSM's clients in the business advisory team had management accounts. 1% of the clients, and that's 1%. And for the large majority of accounting firms, it will probably be between 10 or 20% of your clients will get management information. And the large majority of the time is because clients don't understand why they need it, or they're delivered quite often without any accompanying meeting or proactive commentary. So you end up delivering the management accounts, and you end up more confused about your business than you ever were when you first started. So this is another reason why your client, and it's a very tangible reason about why your clients will need management information.
Yeah, I think it's a low percentage that get that management information across the board. It's still not quite there, and it's not understood. I did a piece of work with a group of accountants. It was a group session I did probably mid-year last year, and I asked them all to write down. There were some from different firms, but there's some who had multiple people from their firm involved. I asked them to write down what management accounts were. Give me bullet points, like entirely different, even within a firm or separate to a firm. So one, when we say management accounts, as a business owner, you still don't really know what that means.
Yeah.
The second part is you don't know why you need all of this. So why do I need, if you're going to list me 6-7 bullet points, tell me why I need that and why that's important. And if you look around the blogs on accountants and bookkeepers about management accounts, we do management accounts, absolutely vague as anything. It can mean entirely different things to different people. And we've really got to spell that out. So if you're listening and you haven't got a blog telling people what management accounts are for you and why they need it, write one.
Yeah.
Because it will be your most valuable piece, because then I can understand why I need to see my balance sheet, my P&L, my creditors, my debtors, all of that, why that's important. Then I can make a decision whether that's useful for me. But a lot of people, when you speak to them, go, can you describe what management accounts are? They describe it even verbally very differently, but also write it down very differently within a firm and across the profession. So
yeah, and management accounts can be brilliantly insightful for a business, but they can also be really damaging. They can completely confuse you. And I think sometimes we're not, as accountants, empathetic enough to how our clients like to receive information. And we'll get some that will want all of that detail and they're happy, but some will just want a summary. They'll just want the top line. But either way, there's got to be some sort of meeting or some sort of proactive commentary to explain the key outcomes of the data. Quite often there's not that.
You get the education around that as well, right? So it's like some people like to read, some people like to listen, and some people like just have a summary view because like I've got no attention span. So I run the business, I run Blue with Dave, my business partner. He's a detail guy, so he'll read every single bit of that management report that comes out. I'm just looking at 3 KPIs. And I need someone just to tell me that as well, like give me a bit of commentary. So a Loom video does me the world of good on it. So you've also got to work out how people want to be educated and are best educated. And I think sometimes we think send an email with War and Peace on the front is the only way that anyone can be educated. And well, I wouldn't even read that. I'm not saying everyone's like me, but you have to cater and even ask, how do you want to receive this information in order to get the best out of it?
It's one of the basics, in I guess account management and business development is how do you want to communicate and how often do you want to communicate? Because if I'm sending you emails day and night and you're not responding, it's not that you're disengaged in me as an individual, you're just disengaged in emails. Would you prefer I called you or WhatsApped you, whatever, video, Loop, like you say, just tell me what you want and we can build around it. And that you're only going to get that relationship right if you understand that in the first instance. Yeah,
we just talked about relationships in at Blue Hub, and one of the questions I ask at the very start of the relationship is how do you want to be spoken to? Well, nicely, but contacted. And you can only fix. You send 100 emails, nothing happens, then one phone call and things happen. So you're like, this person's a telephone person and will gladly pick up the phone. They're not going to read their emails. Other people like never ring me. My phone's always on silent. Get me an email. I'll check them twice a day and I'll get something back relatively quickly. So you have got to work out how these people work and not default to your own way of delivering. Every person's different.
Just to point out there, Matt's just let you know that if he hasn't responded to your email, he doesn't like what you're selling or you, basically, because he would normally reply is what you've just said. So there you go. Sorry to disappoint anyone there.
I batch my emails, to be fair, but what I haven't worked out is the regularity of batching my emails. So whether it's once a day or once a week. So I respond to most. I'm pretty polite on email, to be fair, just not that consistent in responding. Cheers, Sam. Okay, and so next question really is how are you working with them? I know you've mentioned this, the new portal, the new SaaS model, that type of engagement. So is that the main way that you're now working with this advisor channel?
Yeah, absolutely. As I say, from our perspective, we're working through and trying to reach out to as many accountants as we can. It's live now, so it's not conceptual anymore. We can actually talk about and show people it. So from our perspective, we're working through. We're not a huge team. We'll be honest. We want to build it slowly because again, we want to get the right accountants and bookkeepers on board, but we want to get the right team in as well, because I've often seen the growth move too fast and employ before you've got the numbers, and then getting feedback of saying, oh, well, didn't like the new account manager I've got, or they just don't feel like they know me like they used to, and things have changed. So for us, it's learning from experiences we've had in different areas to say, actually, let's do this the right way and do this so we don't grow too fast and we don't, underserve in the ways that we need to. But yeah, from us, from our perspective, it's about just engaging with as many accountants that we know already in our network. But then, Sam's working on the marketing side as well. So as mentioned, we've got the ICW partnership. That's obviously massively helpful from an engagement perspective. But also looking at other ways that we can engage with accountants. Attending the events obviously helps massively from an awareness piece. Being invited to things like this is obviously massively helpful for us as well. But yeah, it's just really about, like I say, searching and trying to find the right ones that want to work with us and vice versa.
Right. So if people want to get in contact with you, is it go to the portal? Is it LinkedIn? Is it email? Is it all of the above? We can put some links in the show notes so people can go and have a look at wherever you want to go. But how are you really kicking off engagements or conversations to see what the compatibility is, and if they want to go forward, how do you want to do that?
1,000-word essay on why. Like you say, it's the usual. You can email Sam or I. You can go on our website. You can check it out on LinkedIn. Wherever you need to be. Sam sometimes just singing on the street corner, which you want to check him out in Harrogate, you can. But generally, you know, yeah, I guess the usual channels that you find us on, I guess it's probably worth you sharing them rather than us quoting all of them.
Yeah, no, we'll get those in the show notes, the right links and email addresses if people want to get in touch and learn a little bit more. Right, guys, we've had a good old chat there for quite a bit of time. Good to catch up and chew the fat. For those of you listening, App Advisory Show is on Spotify and Apple, and we're on YouTube. This goes out. They come out every 2 weeks, so hit subscribe and get onto those. And if you do like it and want some more, make sure you give us a review, preferably 5-star. If it's 1-star, don't bother. But guys, thanks a lot for your time today. It's been really good catching up, firstly, but secondly, I think we've talked a lot about, you know, what the solution can do, but we've heard quite a lot about your experience of elsewhere and what you've seen, and I think that'd be really beneficial for the listeners and watchers. So thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you, Matt.
Just quickly, if anyone wants to challenge anything we've said today, feel free to come and talk to me. Always happy for a debate. And you know, funding advisory hasn't worked for everyone, so some people are quite skeptical about it. So feel free to come and chat and challenge us.
Great. Well, I'll make sure you wear some boxing gear or something at the next. You might have a list of people just sitting there doing that. So, but cheers, guys. Thanks a lot, and I'll catch you very soon.
Cheers, Matt.
Cheers.